you're not starting with let's use AI, what's the process that a business should be going through right now?
The challenge that we see, especially at the board level, to come right back to the topic of this podcast, is they're very much focused on the what and not the how and the why. And so I think, if anything, as a business, you need to be focused on the why first. Like, why do we need to apply AI and what impact does that drive to our business? If you're a successful business and you're doing this well, you won't need less people, you'll need more skilled people. The first thing is start with the why and then build out the capability around the how.
This episode is brought to you by Instant Impact. Instant Impact provides transformative talent solutions to small and mid-sized companies that are making between 30 and 500 hires each year. If your recruitment's giving you a headache and you don't know where to start, then give the team at Instant Impact a call or visit www.instant-impact.com for more information.
Hello and welcome to We Need to Talk About AI. I'm your host, Felix Mitchell. Now, every board is going through the same phenomenon right now. A CEO or investor saying, guys, how are we using AI to drive efficiencies or revenue? Now, it sounds pretty sensible until you realize quite how dangerous that sort of pressure and conversation can be. Starting with how are we using AI, starting with the solution rather than the problem, I think is one of the key reasons that we've got those statistics coming out of McKinsey and MIT and basically any research organization that you talk about. Only between 5 and 10% of AI-based transformation projects are actually producing the results that were initially mapped out at the beginning. Now, our guest today is called Jon Busby, and he heads up product and technology at Pretzl, which is
Right, yep.
a 400 person.
400-ish. I think we're approaching that. Although with AI, of course, are we going to get bigger or smaller? No one knows, right?
No, exactly.
The plan is, of course, always to get bigger.
Absolutely right. But they're a B2B marketing agency, which I think provides a really interesting lens on today's conversation. And Jon's getting to grips with AI, both internally for the product, at the same time as navigating a merger between 4 different brands within a group called Next 15. So I think this gives an amazing seat to the challenges that both AI brings, but then also where that sits within, I guess, BAU business, big transformation. So
Yeah.
Jon, really looking forward to having you on the show.
A pleasure to be here, Felix. Looking forward to sharing some of the insight or learnings that we've gone through over the last year as we've been merging these companies together and implementing AI in our business.
So I think it'd be really useful for the audience just to get a bit of a feel for just the sheer scale of transformation that you're going through at the moment. So you could just give us a bit of an insight into what's going on at Pretzl.
So it's a great question, Felix. So probably about a year ago, or just over a year ago now, the heads of these 4-5 different brands or agencies, depending on which way you look at it. So that was ourselves, a company called Together, Agent 3, a company called Publitech, Velocity, and the heads of another brand called This Machine. We all got in a room and said, "Hey, how's business, everyone?" And can you imagine what they all came back with? It's like, great, yeah, not really. We all turned around and understood the challenge that was facing us. In fact, together we did some research about 3 years ago now, as the AI trend started, and we evaluated that if we didn't start changing the business, up to 40% of our revenue was at risk. Right. So we could see that trajectory already happening, but it's very difficult to transform yourself when all you're really seeing is hype. So we got together, we started talking about what would that future look like, and Pretzl was born. Now, one thing I will say, and I think the branding team, if you're listening to this, you did an absolutely fantastic job. Like, everything about Pretzl is there to represent the challenges in our industry today. That a B2B buyer can go in and out and backwards and up and down and any way through the buyer journey. So it's really there to embody all of those challenges and twists and turns, rather than seeing it as a historical linear process. And so bringing these 4 brands together gives us a huge amount more scope to deliver some fantastic marketing services. And that's not just across channel, which is where I cut my teeth in B2B marketing, but across ABM and ABX and even things like PR and comms, which is amazing.
What's ABX?
I'm not going to be the one to answer, and that's a whole other podcast. I'm gonna very much say I'm not going to be the best one to answer that for you, Felix. But it brings all of these different services together into one place, which is amazing. But what I'm charged with is, right, how do we now transform how we interact with clients, and how do we bring this vision of redefining, revaluing, and reinventing B2B marketing to the masses? Like, how do we go out to a client and embody this in a technology product?
I wonder, because you're kind of going against conventional wisdom in a lot of ways. Interesting. I'm getting there.
Yeah.
Lots of change, lots of transformation going on. I guess conventional wisdom would show the smaller you can keep your unit, the easier it will be to adopt and change and adapt.
Yeah.
The more nimble you'll be. But you guys decided stronger together.
See, I'm going to disagree with you there. Right? This makes us a good podcast as a fellow podcast host. I'm going to disagree on a few different levels. Firstly, I think in the agency marketing space, 400 people is not big, right? It's still a relatively small ship to steer. We can still pivot when we need to. Yes, you could kind of put you in the bounds of like a 20-person or 30-person agency, and that could move faster. And we are, I'm going to be very honest, constrained by being a part of a large organization that has an opinion about risk and compliance when it comes to AI. Again, I think that makes us stronger, not weaker. So the first thing is, that recognition that we're not huge, and I think we can still pivot. If you look at some of the bigger players, your WPPs, your publicists, they are tens of thousands of people, and it takes them longer to move and steer that ship than it does us. So there's that side. The second one is really what Pretzl represents, right? A B2B buyer, whether they're just to move away from AI for a moment, right? We all know that B2B buyers are fickle creatures, right? They prefer not to speak to sales now. I think it's 79 to 80% prefer not to speak to anyone from a sales department. They want to do their own research, often out of hours. They don't, if you look at the historic way that our agencies were set up, here's a Marcoms agency, here's an agency that focuses on channel and partners, here's an agency that focuses on ABM, here's a comms agency. It's very siloed. A B2B buyer doesn't really care whether they're looking at a press release or a landing page or a web banner. So why should our own why should our own marketing departments and our own services be siloed that way? So bringing these 4 different sets of services together, branding, creative, and so on, allows us to be, I think, more nimble and provide a better range of services to our customers if we can orchestrate them and put them in the right order, if we can put the puzzle pieces together correctly.
And I guess maybe this is really interesting, actually. I'd be interested to hear whether the addition of AI and all the disruption that has brought has been a complicating factor, or in many ways a catalyst to your ability to rethink your solution based on where you see the market opportunity.
Okay. I mean, let's break that question down a little bit, because I see that at 2 different levels, Felix. So you've got the adoption of AI with our core marketing services, and then which I'm going to call like building a faster horse, right? Let's put it that way. It's, can we do marketing faster and better? And then I think is that there's another level here, which is what we're trying to break to, which is, what does it look like to invent the motor car of marketing?
That's the question I'm asking. Is you've got AI and everything that means for the limits, breaking down the limits of human capability.
Yep.
And what we can do, and what you guys can do in the marketing space. Is that level of, because in a lot of ways it sort of makes things easier, but it makes it more complex because the sky's the limit on it. Has the ability to broaden your horizon there, has that been helpful to the coming together of brands and creation of this one-stop shop for B2B marketing needs, or is it just a bit too much transformational and opportunity all at the same time?
I mean, yeah, it's I'm not going to say it hasn't been overwhelming, right? For all of the teams involved. And for probably many of the teams that might be listening to this, it's to disseminate information across a 400 person business is still difficult. And to bring them on the same journey. So I think that, yes, there is a transformation challenge there. What I would say is we wouldn't have got to where we are if it wasn't for the wonderful staff and the wonderful people we have across those 4 businesses. And I was always very passionate as part of the merger and the transformation that we were going through to try and bring as much representation in as possible from those 4 businesses. Because I think this isn't just a technology transformation and an AI transformation where we're bringing artificial intelligence in to be a better company. This is a cultural one as well, and we've got to bring everyone along on that journey. I don't know if that's answered your question though, Felix.
No, it has. I mean, let's talk about the industry, because I think if you listen to the experts, B2B marketing, or marketing more generally, I should say, is one of those areas where everyone's saying, God, AI is just going to have such a fundamental impact on this industry. I had just podcast guest before yourself, Martin Sandy, was literally just saying, and it's a different world than the one you operate in, but it's right at the smallest size of organization. He's saying, I only have to hire 2 people to do the job in marketing that a 5-person marketing team used to do, and it's all about creating processes and automations and all the rest of it. And that's very much one way of thinking. It's something I see a lot, particularly in the micro or very small company working. And then you look at organizations like mid-sized organizations, often sales, marketing, it's the first place that you're investing into new AI technology. So I think this is sort of accepted wisdom that this is an industry that's going to be fundamentally disrupted by AI. I'd love to hear how you guys, where you see the industry going and where you see the pretzel-shaped hole.
I think the first one is, depending on the company size, there's a lot of there's a risk appetite that you need to bear in mind. So, where I would say we're facing challenges is against those 2 or 3 person, 10, 20, 30 person agencies. They're embracing AI much, much quicker, not because the technology, they can adopt the processes and the culture more quickly, but because of the legal frameworks that sit around it. And I think there's still a lot that needs to happen to catch up on that side. If you look at some of the indemnity in your copyright policies that someone like Sora with OpenAI or any of the big companies are putting out, they indemnify you against anyone coming after you as the license holder. But if you're an agency and you're producing that for someone else, that doesn't transfer. So I think this is one of the key things that some of the legal elements some of the legal frameworks need to catch up. And that's embodying itself in some of our larger clients not utilizing AI as quickly or having to rely on us to use agreed models so that their own risk policies are in sync. While the very, very small companies, small startups or even tech organizations that we would target that are in that mode can move very quickly if they're willing to take an open appetite to risk. So the first element is that. The second one I like to say is, as we move through this transition, I don't know if this is related to your point, but it always comes into my head whenever we're talking about AI. There's that move to say we can be more efficient and we can do stuff with less people. This isn't the opinion necessarily of my company, because I can't commit to this out there. But I would say if you're a successful business and you're doing this well, you won't need less people. You'll need more skilled people.
Yeah.
Right. So we're not moving into a world where 100 people's work is going to be done by 2 people. If you design your systems right.
But it speaks to the opportunity, I think, for mid-sized companies. And I think one of the things that I've been really disappointed in the last couple of years is that mid-sized businesses are the laggards when it comes to AI.
In what way? Like, how are you seeing them lag behind?
Well, I believe it was a McKinsey report, which I always take with a pinch of salt, given that they're
Who now using AI to generate all of them. Yep.
and heavily incentivized to help companies with their AI transformation. But I think they were showing very, very high adoption in new companies, small companies, as you'd imagine.
Yep.
And then second to that is adoption of AI systems and technologies in very large enterprises. And then mid-sized companies being the slowest to adopt.
Yeah. And the dumbbell effect is what we tend to, we look at that as a dumbbell, right? So you're seeing a big high on the enterprise side. Although I would say reading, the MIT study that you quoted earlier, that's probably it's probably where we're seeing the most failure. And it's going to sound strange, but as a technologist, to say this out loud, don't start with technology, like ever. And I've had a long and illustrious career in B2B tech where I've made that mistake many times to start with tech. It's not about starting with technology. You need good people, good engineers that know what's possible with the technology, but you've got to start with the problem and the use case. And I think that's where large enterprises, I think if we look into 2026, that's where we're going to start to see them fall down. Is there, the hype train will have run out, and we'll start to see AI spend shrink, so especially with what's going on with OpenAI at the moment. Where God knows what's going to happen with that, with the cash flow problems that they're predicting in 2027.
Very interesting.
So that's going to be quite a challenge.
You mentioned the importance of starting with the problem.
Yeah,
and again, I think you're in this brilliant position, both in terms of building the product for Pretzl, but also your roots are in tech transformation, building technology solutions for businesses. If you're not starting with let's use AI, what's the process that a business should be going through right now? So let's say someone's right at the very beginning. You've got a few people screwing around on Copilot. Where should they actually take it from here?
So it's a great question, right? And I think the challenge that we see, especially at the board level, to come right back to the topic of this podcast, is they're very much focused on the what and not the how and the why. And so I think, if anything, as a business, you need to be focused on the why first. Like, why do we need to apply AI, and what impact does that drive to our business? So we were talking just on the way up here around one of the biggest things I've learned this year, and taking it away from artificial intelligence and technology for a second, it's about how you give your teams more context. And it's exactly the same thing with artificial intelligence. You just start with what's the core business problem? What's going to drive the metric, and how are you going to measure that before you're even ready to start implementing AI? So one of the biggest kind of failure states that I tend to see large businesses, and this goes all the way up to, I'm going to say, Fortune 100 enterprise businesses I see making this mistake regularly, is implementing a mandate to say we want to save 20% through artificial intelligence, with no clear guidance about how and why and what the guardrails are around it. So the first thing is start with the why, very Simon Sinek type quote to start with there, and then build out the capability around the how. So we've been spending a lot of time training our teams, actually making them more not just outcome driven instead of output driven, and activity driven, but also essentially making them more accountable for those results, which has been one of the hardest things I've had to do recently, which is step back and let them take the reins and scale. So coming right back to your question, I think one of the key challenges that many businesses have is they just go out there and say, we need to implement AI without that clear guidance on, let's define the use case, let's break it down, let's, to get more practical, to score them and to understand which ones are most important before you even get started.
And let's zoom in on a why here. I'd be really interested in the why, because you guys are doing some really cool stuff with AI, which I hope we'll get onto.
Yeah.
But how did you arrive? What is your why when it comes to the AI transformation, and how did you arrive at it?
It's a great point, right? Actually, it's a fantastic point, Felix. So when we brought those four businesses together, and for me, the opportunity I saw is we have now a wide-ranging catalogue of different services that we can now go out to market with. And hidden deep inside one of those services was a process that one of the teams had been working on, one of the fantastic set of strategy teams. And if you're listening to this, I'm in absolute awe what you produced here, which they did for some super big brands, that showed that there was a different approach to B2B marketing, that we could move away from funnel and linear based metrics to what we call journey based thinking. And that allowed high results. It allowed a mix of different capabilities and services to come together into something that was much more cohesive. So we call that journey-based thinking. We've also got terms around customer science and all this wonderful stuff that I can go into detail on. But what we discovered is that process takes 6 to 8 weeks. You've got to interview salespeople. You've got to speak to marketing people. You've got to go and do first-party and third-party market research. It's not scalable, right? It needs a lot of people to be able to execute. And by the time you've produced that plan, it's already out of date. Something has happened in the market. Something's changed, and you need to pivot. So we found that, for me, was the kind of aha moment where it's like, this is ripe to bring data and technology and AI together into something that it allows us to take, that we used to take 6 weeks for, that we can now do in 6 days, and then eventually 6 hours.
Wow.
So that was the kind of aha moment for us. The process that we went through, and I'm super proud of the team that did all of this behind the scenes. But we started just with very quick and dirty prototypes. One of the advantages with AI, especially with engineering and development teams, is that you can iterate much faster than you ever have done before.
Yeah.
It's almost one of the hardest things to adjust to. Is a lot of our work kind of becomes disposable. You can start something, test something, throw it away, and start something again in the time it would have taken you to build. You could do that 10 times in the time it would have taken you to do it once in the old way of working. So we actually we were producing usable prototypes every 2 weeks, which we were giving out to our teams internally, getting feedback on, internalizing that. And then we essentially turned that into a production line. So we had one team looking at AI and upskilling themselves, and we had one team looking at the user interface. And then behind the scenes, we brought those two together into what became a product that we now call Journey Lab, that we've gone out to market with recently. So when I summarize it, it sounds so simple, but at the time, figuring out that how we were going to prototype this, I think, was one of the most important things we did.
Yeah. And I think, you identified at the end. Yeah. So I mean, first of all, that sounds really cool. I really want to see it and find out more. And we'll share some links to some of the blogs and things that you've done on journey thinking and whatnot, because I'm sure there'll be others there, including myself, who want to find out a little bit more. I think though, so that's the how.
Yeah.
The why then sounds like what you were looking to do is to use, I guess, that's some combination of the coming together of these brands and technology to really differentiate. And it sounds pretty innovative.
I mean, actually, in our why, in our context document that we use in the team, both for AI and internally to onboard people, we have that dumbbell visual, which is we're in the middle right now, and if we don't go one way or the other, we're going to become irrelevant, because marketing is being either overtaken by the big agencies are taking everyone's lunch, or it's the smaller agencies that can innovate faster. So that is key to our why. Is we had to our why was we've got to innovate faster and be able to essentially just get this out to market as quickly as possible.
So how did you reframe this from, and I'm assuming that you had some people at your board being like, guys, we've got to do some AI stuff. What's going on with AI? How did you reframe it with really senior stakeholders from let's do some AI to actually, guys, this is a fight for survival here. This is really important.
God, that's a great question. Where do I even start with that? I think we were already phrasing it using that language to start with, right? I mentioned back 3 years ago when when we were all using GPT-3. Can we remember those days? That 40% of our business was at risk across the main ones being copywriting, obviously, creative, and engineering. So we were already using that terminology to say we need to move from a peace footing to a war footing. This is no longer peacetime. We've got to transform. So I don't think it was a big surprise to our board. I think that's why we got together and made that that change to say we've got to change now, or we're going to become irrelevant. They weren't pushing us to just adopt AI. They were mature enough to understand that adopting it without a clear plan would have been a folly. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah. And so we've gone up there. Let's talk about the employee base. And I don't need to, it will be news to no one listening that the real success in any transformation is about adoption, not about tool selection or creation. Yeah. What have you learned in your successes, and maybe even better, some of the failures that you've had along the way?
Interesting. Okay. I mean, I'm going to use my whole corpus of career here. So we're not talking just about AI.
Go right ahead.
So 10 years ago, I was charged with, over 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we started what became a product in the channel space, partnermarketing.com, something I'm incredibly proud of, still running live today with many of our enterprise clients. And back in those days, product development was what we call feature team driven, right? So it was normally a senior stakeholder, which I wasn't back then, telling you, I think we need to build something that does this. And you would go away and build it. And sometimes it would work and sometimes it wasn't. And it was purely based on the intuition of your stakeholders. One of the biggest changes that we've been going through is adjusting that to be much more based on user feedback on our internal users, and to be really internalizing that into the team. If you think about the engineering or the product team as three main units, you've got kind of the orchestrator, the product manager directing what we work on. We've got the designer making sure it's usable, and we've got the engineers who know what's possible, what's feasible. And looking at the old way of doing things, that stakeholder's so removed. They don't know what's at the bleeding edge. They don't know how they can apply Claude plus a RAG model plus some new framework that's just been released on GitHub over here to be able to produce something that is game changing. So one of the biggest changes we made is moving them to the fringes, looking much more at what the outcome they're looking to drive, and giving the engineering team and the entire product team much more freedom to decide what they want to work on. And that is nerve-wracking.
Right? I was getting that's quite scary.
It is, right? And it's, as I mentioned before, it's about, I kind of said stepping back. It's not a negative thing. But if you look at the pace of change that we're seeing now, especially in software development and engineering, I don't think you could afford to do it any other way. You've got to allow them to have almost absolute veto about what they're building, and trust that you've given them the right context, the right why, to be able to build the right thing.
So you have to build the right why, but you also have to make sure that I guess your job as the leader is to make sure that everyone in the business knows it. Not 99%, but 100%.
Yeah.
What do you do to make sure that everyone knows your why?
Very good question. So what do we do to make sure everyone knows the why? We spent a lot of time transforming the business from, and we were talking about this just on the walk over as well, Felix, from a people-pleasing business. An agency is there to if someone gives us 10 bits of feedback, we go back with 10 responses, to a product-based business, or we call it TAPAS, technology and people as a service. Right?
Oh, I love that.
I'm not a big fan of tapas as Spanish food, but I'll get on board with this. So we call it tapas, and it is a combination. We're not becoming a full SaaS. We're not looking at launching a product and hoping that people use it.
I'm stealing that. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's so good.
You can have it. It was one of our previous COOs brainchilds, but it is about building the blend of technology and people together in order to produce a better outcome. So as we went on that transformation, we had to start saying no to things, and that's incredibly difficult to do when you think about it, right? You've got to go from saying yes to absolutely everything, to pleasing every customer piece of feedback, to being much more confident about where you're heading. So one of the key things was firstly spending a lot of time writing that context document, in fact a strategy document, which actually the team wrote a lot themselves, so that they internalized it and knew it inside out. So the second thing we do is setting clear goals. So we don't like to call them KPIs because that feels a little old school, but it's being very clear around, this is how we're going to drive business impact. And I think one of the kind of another transition or transformation I've seen behind the scenes here is moving from an activity-based goal, which is, hey, I've sent 10 emails today, or I closed 15 bug tickets, to an output-based goal, which might be I wrote 2,000 lines of code, which, by the way, is absolutely terrible. If you've ever been enticed by or delivered this many features, but more towards one that are business outcomes or impact-driven. And that's going to be one of the hardest things that we need to track, because I don't think we're going to get that right first time.
And I guess that's going to be an ongoing conversation and learning exercise.
Yeah, absolutely.
So looking at time, I can't believe we're running to the end, but you've got this amazing workforce that's united behind the context of the why and the how.
Yeah.
You've got an industry that's shifting rapidly.
Yeah.
You've established yourself as an innovator and a leader, but I would imagine you're not going back to your next board meeting and say, guys, jobs are good and
absolutely not
done and dusted. What happens over the next couple of years for you guys?
There's a recognition that we're still really early on this journey, right? So we're recording this. What's the date today? It's the 26th. So we've launched Pretzl out to market. We don't become Pretzl officially until after this podcast is out. 1st of February, is our official launch.
Congratulations.
Right. So this will be, as you're listening to this will be out and we will officially be one company. So there's a recognition that we're still Q1, brand new company. We've got a lot of learning to do. For us, I think it's that we've got to have the right processes, or rather the right attitude, I would say, to constantly reflect and fine tune. One thing I'm always conscious of with engineering teams is to make sure we've got a retrospective process in place that's respected. Otherwise you end up with what we called before relentless progress. It just always feels, there's never you've got to give the team the right time to take their foot off the accelerator a little bit and reflect on, are we using AI for doing the right things? Are we being responsible about AI, or just applying it, just because our board say they are? Is it actionable? Are we doing it in the right places and under the right conditions? So, for me, it's very much around how you build those moments of reflection in, as you go through. I don't know whether that's what you were looking for, Felix, but it's
yeah, I think that is definitely on the cultural side of things. I'd love the commercial.
How do we know if we
commercial or product? What are you most excited about building?
So, two things in there. For tracking our progress, we're looking for product market fit, right? Mm-hmm. That's the number one metric we're looking for this year. And once we start to see, we've seen some early traction with pilot customers. They're excited. And if you're listening to this, please do get in contact if you're one of those pilot customers or want to be. But what am I excited about building? I'm excited about building something that means that we can blend technology and people together successfully, right? If we get this right, and it's really easy to say this with AI, everyone's job will get a little easier. Yes, that's great. But if we get this right, we should be helping our customers achieve better outcomes and selling more of our services. And so that's the permission that I went back a year ago to ask for the business, which is, wouldn't the future look great if we never had to brief again? If we could use the artificial intelligence and the transcription tools that we all have to be able to produce better outputs. I've never in my time as an agency had anyone say that was a great client brief, 10 out of 10. So that was an easy win. But like I say, if we get what we're building in Pretzl and Journey Lab and everything right and aligned, we shouldn't need less people to deliver this. We should be sending less services. And if anything, it should be better integrated and producing better customer outcomes, not just for us, but for our customer's customer.
Big prize on the line.
Yeah, not too hard.
Looking forward to watching the journey.
Thanks very much. No pun intended.
Oh yeah. It was in there somewhere.
Yeah, it was.
Thanks so much for coming on the show.
No, thank you very much, Felix. Thank you for inviting me.